was a term used by many sociologists to describe the youth subcultures formed here in the UK between the 1950s and the 1970s. Today, we are going to talk about many of them, from skinheads to mods to punks. Now, we are going to pass over to the middle class tribe of the hippies. Right, so who were the hippies?
The hippies were members of a countercultural movement that blossomed in the United States in the 1960s, and then it moved to the UK, becoming increasingly more popular.
Well, why did they form?
They developed from a reaction against the strict social standards of the 1950s. They were largely a group of white middle-class teenagers who belonged to the group of the baby boom generation.
What impact would you say that they had?
The hippies left a lasting impact on the social attitudes and popular culture.
So what values do you share?
We have a vegetarian-based diet based on unprocessed food, and we practice holistic medicine. Yeah, dude!
And what would you say your day-to-day lives look like?
We live with our bros in communal living arrangements, and we rely on the power of nature to heal our bodies.
And what do you think you're best known for?
We try not to conform to societal expectations despite our parents' approval of this. We like to wear free-fitting clothes and let our hair groove with the nature. Be grab your leave, man.
And what is something that you wish to say to our viewers?
Make peace, not war. Be beautiful and free, like the sea. Yeah!
Despite their free thinking and peaceful ideologies, the hippies were also avid drug users, with many of them using drugs such as LSD and marijuana. But they were not the only subculture here in the UK. Here we are, where we found some skinheads. Let's go see what's going on with them. Why do you shave your heads?
We hate the hippies! We shave because it looks tough, innit? Can't get caught on machines, you know? Easy to wash the blood out, you get me?
And how do you think people view you as a group?
I think most people are probably scared of us, you know? But it's a little bit intimidating, you get me?
And would you say that there's anything other than your hairstyles that define you?
We listen to reggae and R&B.
The skinheads were a group of mainly men who were recognisable by their shaved heads. They mainly came about in the 1950s here in the UK and were motivated by their expression of ultimate values and their working class pride.
Well, the skinheads really felt threatened by the decline of working class industries and the increasing immigration. This caused them to start reclaiming their territory as a defence for the increasing immigration. They did this through football hooliganism as an expression of ownership of the ground and surrounding area.
So I believe that skinhead culture actually represents an exaggerated version of working class masculinity. They wear extreme forms of working clothes like rolled up jeans, braces, big steel toe cap boots. They show a macho attitude and are aggressive, often exhibiting racist.
So can you tell me any more about the skinheads?
Well, they rejected the youthful counterculture movement, in particular the ethos of peace and love, and deliberately cultivated aspects of style and culture that were furthest removed from it.
The skinheads were one of the core youth subcultures here in the UK. They were often seen as right-wing nationalists or neo-fascists by the media. Now, we are going to move on to two groups that were often conflicting, the mods and the rockers.
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was down. I'll give you everything and more, and that's for sure. Walking through a party in the county.
Typically working class, more affluent group, who often used their money to create a style that went against the norms of the middle class.
And why do you think that they decided to dress in this way?
Well, when young men and women dressed smartly, it sent the message of rebellion against the austerity of their parents' generation. It could also be that they are showing how smart and cool they are with their Italian suits and skis.
What do you think about the ongoing feud between the mods and the rockers?
Go in, let me take a picture.
The media tends to exaggerate the disputes they had between the rockers, making a moral panic, causing more people to want to join the groups.
The Rockers, also known as the Leather Boys or Ton-Up Boys, were free-spirited individuals who pursued their own goals. They originated in the 1950s but skyrocketed in popularity in the 1960s. They were famous for their leather jackets, tight trousers and slick-back hairstyle. They rode classic British motorcycles which they frequently customised to make their own and often raced illegally. These bikes are still popular today and are called the cafe racers because the rockers typically met at roadside cafes or diners.
The mods and the rockers emerged in the 1960s with their very public, ongoing feud. But in the 1970s, with the emergence of the punks.
After being able to make our own clothes, it gives us the edge that no one else has.
So, did you make your tops?
Yeah, I thought this bin liner would be cool to make a top out of.
And who inspired you to do that?
Well, McLaurin and Westwood started to make clothes that look just like us.
So, who were the punks?
The punks were a group, namely of the lower class, that were best known for their atypical fashion, sense and culture.
And when did this punk fashion start?
Well, I would say punk fashion started to emerge in the 1970s as a sort of anarch and aggressive movement.
And how would you describe their culture?
I like to use the term bricklage due to the fact that many punks would reuse ordinary objects and attempt to incorporate it into the mainstream culture.
The Teddy Boys were a group of white youths in the UK who would hang out in large groups in back alleys, often committing violent crimes.
Jefferson, you're a sociologist who specifically studied the Teddy Boys. Can you tell me why they formed?
Well, yes, of course. They emerged at a time of high employment and relative affluence, meaning the people were well off in terms of money. However, Teddy Boys were often formed of youths which were expelled from this relative affluence due to not doing well in school and ultimately ending up with nowhere to go. The group then ultimately formed as a rebellion against the rationing and restrictions in the 1950s.
And how could you identify a Teddy Boy?
Well, they were usually part of the working classes and therefore they wore bright coloured jackets, suede shoes and bootlace ties.
Now that is interesting. Why did they wear those pieces of clothing?
Well, I believe that the jackets they wore were a symbol of their want to be a part of the middle classes. The ties also added an element of this tough coolness to them as they were worn by cowboys in films and TV.
So as we have seen, the UK have had many different subcultures, from mods to rockers, hippies to punks, skinheads to Teddy Boys. These subcultures have also influenced many of the subcultures that we see today, making them truly spectacular.
This is a bit too much effort for me, actually. My art days are over.
Makes it beautiful. Oh, that's what makes it beautiful.
I would argue subcultures can allow freedom, experimentation, and an optimism that things could change. I think that membership could protect members from social and economic problems. I believe
Right, back to break with his ideas.
Can you just film Penny saying our ideas? Right, back to break to hear more about his beliefs.
Yikes.